Hi there. Okay. Hi, I'm Bobby, but my birth name is Bianca. So for school, you can call me Bianca Cardo. If you're looking to just chill, you can call me Bobby. And this is, what piece of Persian art would I add to Stocksted's and Cothran's art history books? So this is an object that I chose for my assignment. It's titled Fragment of Textile with Horses. It displays a thin, long row of brown silk woven with a row of winged horses, which are sewn from a dark blue silk. This piece is said to be 42 times 7.5 inches and dates back to the Sasanian period, which is around the 5th to 7th century CE. These winged horses, otherwise known as Pegasus, are covered in tied ribbon in their hair and around each leg. Atop each horse on their head is a bowl of pearls. Pearls are also shown along the horse's neck and legs. Surrounding each horse in its entirety is a circular ring filled with these pearls, and 4 squares that highlight the top and bottom sides of the pattern. This circular sphere and winged horse pattern is repeated 5 times down the fabric scroll. Outside this pattern, we see a repeating figure of a tree with bush-like collections of leaves with 2 small floral embellishments at the tree's base. The top and sides of the textile have a raw edge along the surrounding fabric, whilst the bottom foreground of the textile has torn away half of the bottom Pegasus, as you can see here. This is the importance of the piece and why I feel that it would add a significance to the actual history books. So, starting from the beginning, why I believe that Stocksted and Maryland and Michael Watt Cothran Art History 6th edition Pearson 2018 book should consider adding Fragment of Textile of Horses to their art history books. And the reason being is people love mythical creatures. I'm gonna explain a little more. So learning just how far back humans culturally worshipped these creatures as not just fragments of human imagination, but as gods and deities that were to be worshipped has been an extremely fascinating discovery I learned in the process of researching the origins of this piece of textile works and what inspired the overall installation of the fabric piece. So, we are shown these winged horses in many current forms of media. To this day, they are beloved creatures to little girls and bronies, which are male adult My Little Pony fans. And also, I am also a fan of Pegasus. Understanding the creation of these fictitious beasts only gives them deeper meaning and has personally furthered my passion for understanding the ways of the past. Persian art displays many concepts of mythical creatures within their art culture, many creatures of which would be associated with different gods. This connection between the animal world and the spiritual world is a heavy influence in the art and architectural world of ancient Persia, now known as Iran. Lions were representations of Ishtar, and bulls being in connection with the storm god, Adad, according to Marilyn Stockstad and Michael Watt Cothran in the art history book. That is a statement. This is a statement that they say. The Ishtar gate is decorated with tiers of dragons, with the head and body of a snake, the forelegs of a lion, and the hind legs of a bird of prey that were sacred to Marduk. So this is just another example of mythical creatures that people found beloved, and specifically it's, a dragon. Another thing that these different cultures, and specifically Persia, would capture along the sides of their buildings and walls. They'd incorporate art and architecture and make it so that you would be able to go into your building of worship and just regular buildings and see these deities and these creatures that the world and them personally had coincided with their worshiping gods. In addition, this is because historically, according to Greek mythology, the birth of the Pegasus arose from the blood of Gorgon, Medusa, whilst being beheaded by Perseus. So, how did the Persians view this creature? Given that, it is a part of Greek mythology. Well, according to Katayun and Fekripor and Fariba Sharfian, symbology of the winged horse in ancient Iran, case study as seals from Bali Sina Museum in Hamadan. The Pegasus, the ancients considered this image of a winged horse to be a symbol for carrying the souls of the deceased. And as the years go on, the Persians connected the creature to their own manifestations of the gods Tishtar in Bahram. In this case study, Katayun, Fekripor, and Fariba Sharifin, sorry for the names and me not being able to pronounce them. These two even go as far in their study to claim that the origins of these winged horses, in their words, the hypothesis of this research the Pegasus horse was introduced from Iran to neighboring civilizations such as India, China, and Greece. And in the Sassanid period, which is the peak of the Zoroastrian religion in Iran, its role was mostly used. The role of Pegasus were mostly used on priests' seals and sometimes textiles, as you saw in the previous image, and also dishware, which show the influence of religious beliefs on art. This statement basically means that there are historical research that have gone as far to say that Greek mythology was not the birthplace of the Pegasus, but instead was conceptually birthed in the Persian Empire, or what we now call Iran. Whether this hypothesis is fact or not, we know that the symbol of the Pegasus in art and its connection to holding the spirits of gods is a topic other religions will claim came from their soil, their land, their place of worship. So basically, because people believe that these creatures, Pegasus or winged horses, are related to their religions, they coincide with their personal gods, because this is a belief, and these images of these creatures go so far back to 5th to 6th century, right? And that's also the rise of these creatures in art. Finding the origins and the birthplace of the first drawing of a Pegasus, the first idea of that creation, is very hard to tie down to one place. So other religions, such as the Zoroastrian religion, they believe, because it's connected to their gods, that perhaps their people had created this deity, the Pegasus. However, historically, the Pegasus is known to come from Greek mythology or Greek culture, given that the correlation between the two, the art world and mythology, are tied together. And they created the rise of potentially the art in the surrounding cities and countries. So these researchers basically hypothesized that Iran had spread this either ideology or just overall art and creation of the Pegasus from Persia to other places. All right. Okay. That shows just how valuable and just how significant this piece of work, the textile, the fragment of textile with horses, must have been to the Persian people at the time. And especially it had strong significance given that Pegasus were not depicted on textile very often. This would have been a very precious piece during the Caesarian era. Sasanian era. Okay. Therefore, given the origins of the creation of the mythical creature have been argued, I feel it is a fair statement to say that the Pegasus is a widely beloved creature that has brought to life years of detailed works of art and imaginative storytelling. The simple depiction of a horse with wings now becomes anything but simple, but instead a valued path to understanding Persia's influence, potentially, and cultural significance within the art world. This is given the hypothesis made by Bekrikpour and Sharfian. Either way, Persia was understanding of the ways of culture at the time and understood the significance of the creature itself that was being held within the world at whole during this period. So here are some other Sasanian art depicting horses with wings. So as you can see, there is a seal that would have been used, as stated before, by priests in order to, verify their identification. And here's a plate depicting some soldiers with the horses with wings as well. So talking a little more about relevance, learning how these ancient civilizations carry deep connections to the personification of gods and deities. It makes me question if these creatures were always drawn up representations of religious figures, or if they perhaps ever once could have existed outside of just the human mind. It really just makes you think in a curious way about life, given just how far back these drawings and ideas of gods being in connection to these animals really were, right? Could they have potentially existed? Probably not, but it's nice to pretend. The fact that the Persian Empire wasn't the only to represent the idea of Pegasus, it's a really interesting fact. It gets you thinking, were they in communication with other civilizations that held similar beliefs? Why do we see these mythical creatures as reoccurring entities and embodiments of gods? Did humans draw inspiration from other civilizations? Or are our brains a lot more similar than they are different? And perhaps these two different cultures thought up the same idea and concept for a deity. Is there an origin to this creation? Or did cultures take inspiration or replicate from one another? Stockstead, Marilyn, and Michael Watt Cawthron in the 2018 Pearson 6th edition book state that at its height, the Persian Empire extended from Africa to India, from Persepolis, Darius in 490 BCE, and Xerxes in 480 BCE. They sent their armies west to conquer Greece, but mainland Greeks successfully resisted the armies of the Achaemenids, preventing them from advancing into Europe. Indeed, it was a Greek who ultimately put an end to the Persian Empire. In 334 BCE, Alexander the Great of Macedonia was believed to be the one who set an end to the empire. However, Persia eventually revived. The Persian style in art continued to influence Greek artists and ultimately became the foundations of Islamic art. So, given that this statement within the history textbook, it does kind of suggest that Persia and their art was an influence to Greek art and Greek culture alongside, Islamic art. However, this statement really does make you question the old statement and hypothesis made by Fekrapur and Sharafian, because it does mean that the art history did travel from Iran to the outward cities and countries. So, perhaps the Pegasus came from Persia? It's still a question that is, a topic of understanding that we still need to comprehend. I don't know if the origins. I'm leaning towards the origins not necessarily being from Persia, but perhaps they normalized and expanded the art of the Pegasus and made it more a widely beloved creature. So, this statement here highlights the importance of this fabric textile with horses, because it illustrates the influence that the ancient Greek Empire had on the Persians, according to Stockstead and Cawthron. This textile documents how the mythological stories and power held by the Greek were and still are widely recognized. And at the time, these mythological stories were believed to be true, not just by the Greek, but those living in other empires. This is what that statement is kind of insinuating. The depiction of the horse with wings on this Persian textile displays the cultural relevance of the creature and hints to the art world being aware of trends, given that these culturally beloved mythical animals are mirrored in other cultures, seemingly with influence, but potentially without. Illustrating the significance of the textile being made during this era, the 5th and 6th Sasanian era of the Persian Empire, and hence why I believe it would make an interesting read if this piece were to be added to the newest art history book by Marilyn Stockstead and Michael W. Cawthron. These are some of my references, and I hope you found this interesting. Thank you.